Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Pane. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. G'day everyone, welcome to episode 19. Joe here. Thank you for joining me. And once again, I'm just loving, like on a weekly basis, I'm just so enjoying the messages I'm getting on Messenger, a couple of emails, just text messages from people who know me, just expressing their deep appreciation of what they're getting from these podcasts. So it gives me great fulfillment. It's weird doing these podcasts because it's just me talking into my computer through a microphone with no feedback at all. So unless I hear from people, I don't actually know if this is hitting the mark or not. But anyway, we'll just keep going on faith, and I'm loving it, and I'm enjoying sharing these insights with you. So today, I thought I would focus on what is real freedom. Like, what is it really? We have all of these different connotations of freedom, or definitions, or perspectives, or meanings, or thoughts of what freedom is. Of course, the most typical definition of freedom is to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I just want to ask you if you could open your mind up even more than normal and just embrace curiosity about where I'm going to take you on this conversation, and just let this simmer. As I've said in previous podcasts, don't necessarily agree with what I'm saying, don't disagree with what I'm saying. Just let it sit in the middle somewhere, because this is a different way of looking at things. So here's the thing. If typically the most common definition of freedom is to be able to do whatever we want, whenever we want, the next question has to be, well, for how long? How long can you do whatever you want, whenever you want? I mean, typically most of us would think about spending time on a beach or on an island or traveling somewhere. Most of us would define to do whatever we want would involve moving away from where we are currently living. Not in terms of moving house, but in terms of going on an adventure somewhere. That's phenomenal. But for how long can you do that? I don't know about you, but I know my thresholds. My thresholds of traveling away from home, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. That's my threshold. I remember speaking with a good close friend of mine. His mum was sharing with me how her and her husband went away for 10 weeks overseas, and by the 10th week, they were absolutely hanging to get home, because I was just over all the tours and all the, the overstimulation of all of the senses with all the wonderful places I was seeing. Now, I know how this sounds. I'm aware of how this sounds. Oh, what a problem. But let me tell you that, all of us are like cells. We're human cells in the bigger cell of the earth. And as I may have shared in previous episodes, every cell exists for one reason. And that reason is because it's there to contribute something to the whole. And for most of us, to do whatever we want, whenever we want, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, does not involve other people. It just involves a self-indulging holiday or something like that. Nothing wrong with that, but the question is for how long. So I'm questioning the sustainability of that definition. For some of us, it might be to go and do charity work and go and do all these other things. Fantastic. But there's something missing. There's something that needs to be added to this definition, or is certainly expanded into this definition of to do whatever we want, whenever we want. Because there has to be some kind of sustainability about it. So these are my thoughts. Before I dive deeper, like completely into my thought, I just want to pre-frame it and set up our minds like this. For what purpose do we want to be free? Based on that definition, we want to be free so we can feel great, feel happier, to feel more fulfilled, to feel better, to feel good. If I can summarize all that as just simply feeling good, that's the reason why freedom is so attractive, is just so we can feel good. How many people, how many cases, have we heard over the years of people suddenly coming into money, like winning the lottery or something like that, millions of dollars, and to find that, a year or two later, their lives are either back to where they were or they're even worse off than where they were. So I think this definition of freedom needs to be challenged. And so what I want to share with you is that if the whole point of wanting freedom is to feel good, well, let's go to an aspect of my emotional fitness formula. So in my emotional fitness formula, there are 5 core principles that drive this framework of emotional fitness. And one of those core principles that drives this framework is values. And I define a value as our emotional compass. It directs us in the direction of where we want to be and where we want to go to feel even better, or to feel aligned, or to feel good with what we're doing. In other words, values are intimately tied and connected to our emotions. Someone once said to me that values are an emotional state that we want to experience on a consistent basis. And I love that definition. I can't remember where that came from, but they're elegant words. I'll say it again. Values are an emotional state that we want to experience on a consistent basis. So I can tell you that one of my values, for example, is health and vitality. It's up there. It's like number 1, number 2. It's up there in the top 2 easily, without a doubt. And one of the ways I experience health and vitality, there's lots of ways I experience it, and one of the ways is through my running, as you've heard me talk about here in this podcast. So, when I'm running, I feel so joyous. I mean, at the time of this recording, just yesterday was the weekend, and I went on a adventure run with a couple of my running friends. We ran 20 kilometers. And I know to some of you that sounds ludicrous, and to others it sounds like, oh yeah, I get that. But we ran 20 kilometers. It was rolling hills in nature. It was just phenomenal. And to me, like, that is what it's all about. So I felt great. So as I connect and stay connected with my running, that gives me a feeling, an emotional feeling, not just, there's all the physical benefits, but there's also the emotional benefits and the spiritual benefits of how that makes me feel, because it's an alignment to my value of health and vitality. So here's my definition of freedom. My definition of freedom is when we are living loyal and aligned to our values. When our lifestyle is completely congruent to what matters to us. When our lifestyle is congruent, aligned to what matters, to what our values actually are. Because I can say to you with deep certainty that if we're living our life in violation of our values, we feel emotionally really, really, really ordinary, or really, really crap. And when you're feeling emotionally crap, emotions color every aspect of our experience. And the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our experiences. And if we are emotionally unhealthy or emotionally unfit, our experiences suffer, because emotions don't respond to the reality of the situation. Our emotions are a response to our perception of that reality. And a core part of the quality of our emotions is living in alignment to our values. So if we're in a job or a relationship, or we're living in a place in a way that is not agreeable or in alignment to what we believe is our emotional compass, what we believe is important, what we believe matters, then you're going to have an awful time of life. Because let me just say what I just shared a minute ago or 30 seconds ago. Our emotions color every aspect, every nook, every cranny of all of our experiences 100%. Our experiences could not be experienced if it wasn't for the color and the flavor and the vibe and the frequency of emotion. And emotions don't respond to facts. Emotions don't respond to the situation. Emotions respond to our perception of the situation. And even though we're not in control of the situation at times, we are in full control of our perception. And the emotions associated to our perception are significantly influenced by how aligned we are to our values. So if we're living our life violating what we believe is important, being in the wrong career or the wrong relationship or the wrong country or whatever it might be, then how are you gonna succeed? Like in terms of like whatever success means to you, right? I mean, to me, success is Earl Nightingale's words. To me, just summarize success. It's the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So if we're to progressively realize our worthy ideals, we got to be aligned to our values, and that is freedom. Because if you're in a job or a career or a business that is completely aligned to your values, you're feeling pretty phenomenal. You're feeling amazing. Like you're feeling emotionally sound, emotionally grounded. You're feeling emotionally clear. You're feeling emotionally really good. And that isn't that the whole point of freedom, is for us to feel good? It has to be. We wouldn't want to be free to feel crap. We want to feel free so we can feel good. And relationships are the same. Are we in the right relationships that are aligned to our values? Does our partner or our friend or our wife or our husband or our girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, our soul buddy, are they an echo? Are they an expression, an extension of us? In other words, do they have a similar philosophy of living? Because that is another way of looking at values. Values is, what is your philosophy? What to you is important in having a great life? What for you doesn't matter in having a great life? What for you matters most? What for you matters least? What grabs your attention and fills you up? And what doesn't grab your attention and drain you? These are different ways of talking about values. And values are not based on fact. It's based on our perception of the fact. That is such an important distinction for me to really be clear on this particular episode. So freedom, my definition of freedom, is living a life loyal to your soul, loyal to your values, loyal to the emotional compass that exists organically, naturally, that we're born with within us. As Khalil Gibran said, when we are born, our work was placed in our heart. Our mission is to find what it is. Now, he said what I just said there a lot more elegantly than me, but you get the point. And values are not something that we create. Values are what we discover. And how we discover our values is by trying different things to see how we feel. So I know that for me, for example, the work that I do, the work that I do here with you, the work that I do live with live rooms, and just the coaching and the training, all the stuff that I do is completely aligned to the values around meaning, around fulfillment, around joy, around fun, around connection. It's all those things, around appreciation, around gratitude. That's kind of like the thematic flavor of my value set. And that's what I carry around with me everywhere. I'm very clear on what I would defend in my life and what I wouldn't bother defending. So, for example, I'm very clear on defending my lifestyle in terms of how I want to live and how my wife wants to live and how we want to live as a family. I've never been, I've always been someone who, well, this is not true. I've not always been someone who, because I'm a completely different person today to what I was 20 years ago, like you listening to this podcast. I'm sure you were very different, 20 years ago. For some of you listening to this call 20 years ago, you were only 5 years old. So you were very, very different. But the point I want to make is I'm very clear on what kind of lifestyle I want to lead. I love working only a handful of days to 10 days maximum a month. I love that. Now, most people go, oh, we'll love to do that. But you got to work for that. It didn't just happen overnight. That's something that I've worked really, really hard to create. Now, that might change. The only way it's going to change is if I change it in a way that's going to make me still feel good and be aligned to my values. So the feelings I'm talking about are very different to the, your footy team winning and you feel happy. Or that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an emotional state that lies deep within us that lights up when we're aligned to what matters in our lives. So I trust there's something I'm saying in this episode that is clear, that is consistent, that is something that you're connecting with and resonating with. So freedom, real freedom, is living your life aligned to your values, which means if your career is aligned to your values, you're free even when you're at work. That if your relationships are aligned to your values, you're free even when you're with other people, the people that matter to you most. that when you're aligned to your values, you take some time to commit to space that's completely dedicated to you and you alone, whether that's expressed through a physical expression of running or it's expressed through something else, musically, artistically, creatively, intellectually, however you want to express it. These are all very important aspects of what I define as freedom. So I trust and hope that today's insight has cast a slightly different perception on what freedom means to you. And to me, this is a discovery process. I think we're continually aligning and working out what our values are. Now, this might sound a little bit limiting, what I'm about to share with you, and it might sound a little bit judgy, but I'll just go ahead and share it. And that is, I reckon that saying, I don't know who said this, but someone said at some point in human history that life begins at 40. And I've got to say, I completely and utterly agree with that from the standpoint of values. I think we need to live as an adult for at least a couple of decades to start to gain clarity on what matters and what doesn't matter. And if you're listening to this, and whether you're 57, 67, 28, 19 years of age, it doesn't matter what age you are. The point is this: as you go through life, you got to try different things. You have to be experiential. I'm not talking about drugs. I'm not talking about altering your state of consciousness. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about trying different skills. Work out what innately is the kind of intelligence that is born within you that needs to be expressed. Find careers. Be curious about learning something around your career that lights you up. Or maybe you need to change career, or maybe you need to be more committed to the career that you already have. Whatever it might be for you. Because when we engage fully in life and challenge ourselves, that's how you work out what matters. That's how you work out what doesn't matter. I'll give you an example of this, and this just came to me as I'm speaking with you. So just recently, I just came back from Manly, and Manly in Sydney, which is one of the most gorgeous places on the planet. And I delivered a 2-hour presentation at a Pilates conference, which was just phenomenal, and the people were just amazing and beautiful. And anyway, there was a bit of a mix-up, a bit of a misunderstanding when it came to my accommodation. So somebody booked my accommodation, and the accommodation was very much a hovel, if I could describe it as that. Like, if I ever owned a pet dog or a pet cat, which I don't, but if I was to have a pet dog, I wouldn't leave my dog in there. Like, it was just awful. Now, that's just my perception. Somebody else might move in there and think that it's not. But I walked into this place and I thought, oh my dear. Even as I was walking into the room, the hallway was so small and the rooms were so tiny, I could hear the guy next door. I don't know what he was doing in there. He had music playing, but weird sounds were coming out of his throat, like it was strange shit. And I did a runner. I left. The accommodation had been paid for by my client. I did a runner, and I just went to the local the Siebel and booked myself. I paid top dollar, and I just booked myself 2 nights there because I couldn't stand being in this other place. Now, judge me all you like, but let me tell you, the contrast of that taught me what really matters to me, and congruency and consistency to me, and loyalty to self to me is one of my value themes. Like, it is so important. Like, I could not stand to stay in this place teaching what I teach and who I am and what I do and how I choose to live my life. And the other thing is, guys, it was a stark contrast when it came to money. I got a direct experience of what it feels like to have very little money. Like, this place was really, really, really cheap. Like, really cheap. And the point I want to make is that I had a taste of what it was like. And by the way, I'm aware of what I'm saying, and in that I have no idea what it's like to live in the street. I absolutely have no idea of what it means to be poor. Let me be very clear on this. But just in contrast to what I'm used to, this other place was really awful. And I got a reminder of wealth and how important wealth is. Not wealth as in rich and famous. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the wealth of cash flow that provides all of these wonderful experiences that I get to experience myself, that I get to share with my wife and my children, and I get to share with others around me. So the contrast of that engaging experience that was quite, for me, negative, reminded me of what matters in my life. And wealth and money is something that's important to me too. Because to me, without that, it's very difficult to have a life of peace. Now, there might be someone listening to this podcast saying, well, I disagree. You can have peace without money. You probably can. But based on my financial obligations with my sons who are about to go to high school, I've got properties to pay. I've got many financial obligations in my business. If cash flow stops, I'm not going to be experiencing peace. Let me tell you that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because what happens is when we experience contrast, we get reminded. But the main message is this. We need to engage fully with life to discover what our values are. We need to challenge ourselves to discover what our values are. Because when we know what they are, our emotional compass becomes clear. And when our emotional compass is clear, we have an emotional range, an emotional state that we can choose to become loyal to. And when we're loyal to what truly matters within us, when we are aligned and following that emotional compass, we feel amazing. And when we feel amazing, we are free. And that is what freedom is. So, and freedom, true freedom, this is my final comment for today. True freedom has to involve contribution and growth, has to involve other people. It's gotta. Life makes no sense without others. Absolutely no sense. So anyway, I'm going to pause now. So I just thought I'd share some thoughts there, my insights for today. I trust you'll enjoy today's episode. Please message me on Facebook Messenger or on any of the platforms that my podcast is on, or on YouTube if you want to share a comment or a question of any kind. Once again, thank you also for the so many of you that have given me some phenomenal reviews on Google. And if you're loving these podcasts and you haven't given me a great review, I would love one, because the more that gets out there, the more this podcast can be organically part of the universe. And see, I'm not very technical, am I? I can't give you all the language, but it's a good thing to get Google reviews because it gets exposed to more people. That's what I've been told by my coach, my mentor who looks after all my techie stuff. So if you can look after me techie wise, that will be much appreciated. So Google reviews are a good thing. So anyway, guys, look, have a great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever you are. I really appreciate you tuning in and look forward to reconnecting with you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye for now. I'm Joe Pane, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you're thoroughly loving the journey of these messages, please feel more than welcome to leave a review. And be sure to leave a comment on what you've been learning and how useful this has been to you and how you've been sharing this with those around you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.